Hello, hello. It is November 12th, 2025. I am Dan, and this is Mark. Uh, we're back for the State of Nativewind after a 3-week hiatus, I think.
Yeah, impromptu hiatus,
Impromptu
I
3-week
guess.
hiatus. Um, yeah, we have a number of different things to chat about with respect to version 5 of Nativewind, but I think a first good step is to just sort of cover what's happened in the ecosystem over the last 3 weeks. Uh, as I was just mentioning to Mark, we saw the release of Uniwind through dev releases and like stable releases. And it seems, people have a lot of good things to say about it. Pretty solid experience. Um, the version 5 changes that we uh, have largely been reviewed as overall positive for Nativewind, and the only challenges we're still facing are largely just trying to get the guides together for different certain functionalities. There was an issue that some folks were running into with respect to trying to specify class names and styles for components,
hmm
which fortunately Ty, I believe his name is, came in and resolved. Mark, when you get a chance, you might want to take a look at those PRs that I merged. There
Yeah,
were two of them for that. They haven't made it into a release yet. They presumably
but
once
they are in
markets.
the nightly release for
Oh,
people
okay.
who want to
Yeah.
use them.
I didn't
Yeah.
know. Can you clarify how that works? Because I wasn't really able to make heads or tails of it.
Yeah, so every commit on the main branch gets published to NPM as a nightly version. So
Okay.
it gets published with the Git SHA tag of it, so you can identify
Got it.
which commits are from which releases. But basically, everything that gets merged, every PR, it gets published to npm.
Does that also mean that it has a like a GitHub release tag as well for like a nightly
It doesn't release on GitHub. It just
just
has
NPM?
the. Yeah, I'll link something in chat now. Um,
What's up, Bradley? You remember where the private chat is, Mark?
I was trying to put it in the public chat and that failed. So I'm putting it in the private chat instead.
I'll post it in the public chat. I don't know why you're not able to. We'll want to figure that out at some point.
I, I literally got this error.
Um. Oh, I see. Because it. Okay. I think I get it. I mean, yeah. Um. So it's still weird because it should be allowing us to post like from both of our account, but like I'll figure that out later. So so this is an example of a nightly release for React Native CSS, not Nativewind, right? So I guess that's the important clarification is
Yeah.
that the release changes will be for React Native CSS. The bulk of stuff will be React Native CSS. I still haven't actually gotten around to migrating a bunch of the issues to the React Native CSS
hmm
repo. I've largely just been trying to like get a hold of them, and organize them properly. One thing that I did do in the last 3 weeks is to start up a roadmap in GitHub um, for the entire Nativewind sort of what do you call it, like group of projects or whatever, group of repos. And so once Mark makes that public, everyone will be able to
Yeah.
see it.
Make that public
Um,
now.
yeah. For some reason, React Native CSS isn't grouped in there. I think that's also some sort of like permissions thing. So just something to be aware of. But there's only a handful of issues in there now. But the process generally for transparency is basically like, yes, this seems like, there's a reproduction, there's like enough information for us to look into. That's going to make it into the to-do column. Then once one of us gets to take a look at it, it'll go into the kind of, I think it's called like discovery or something column, like the next one over, like inspecting or something like this.
Yep.
Then we're like properly working on it. So that's like in progress. The last two columns are basically the changes are in, they're awaiting release, or otherwise it is now actively available either via nightly build or a dedicated release. And that's when the issue is completely out of the way. I think this will be good, um, both for us and for folks who are kind of curious what are the current priority things. It'd be tremendously helpful if instead of dropping comments like same or like this kind of thing, you just give it like a thumbs up or something. That's really helpful for us to know what
Yeah,
is higher
one thing that
priority.
people don't realize is you can sort GitHub issues by thumbs ups. So we can
Yeah.
tell what issues people are having the most just by sorting the comments by thumbs up. Sorting by, you can't
Um,
sort by same comments. So when you post same, you're not actually changing like the priority of the issues. If you give it a thumbs up, then we can actually see that this issue has more thumbs ups than the other issues, and we can kind of sort them by that way. If you just post by stuff like same, like the auto moderator is going to come along and like minimize the comment. We're not going to be able to see it. So you actually don't change the priority of issues with those sort of comments. Thumbs ups do
yeah, it just
affect
adds a
that.
lot of noise without any
Yeah.
help. So what I'll be doing is that I'll be adding, I'm going to explore some of the stuff in GitHub to basically like minimize all that stuff automatically, um, just for our sake. But that means that if you do want to flag it as like, yeah, you're running into this, like Mark said, give it a thumbs up, on the original message, and that'll help us move things forward. So, um, so yeah, that's something I'll be doing. Um, Also, like I was mentioning to Mark, I'll be migrating Nativewind UI from version 3 of Tailwind to version 4, which is to say, from version 4 of Nativewind to version 5. I'll probably create a number of my own things and use that as an informative, kind of migration uh, test run, more or less, because I think I'll run into a bunch of the stuff. Uh, I also am sort of working on a Uniwind UI equivalent, so
Mhm.
expect that sometime in the near future as well. Um, and the one thing I wanted to mention is I did end up getting the like LLM instructions for the installation guide, right? So you can now open those up in your LLM of choice and or cursor or something, and then have it install based off of dedicated instructions right from our website. Someone suggested that I do that also for the migration guide for Nativewind 4 to Nativewind 5, and I thought that was a really good idea. So the only trick, Mark, is that we currently have two places that have notes on migrating. One is the
Yeah.
blog post, obviously, and the other is less a migration and more a troubleshooting document, I would say, that you posted
Mm.
to the Nativewind v5 docs under migrating to v4. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm thinking of just renaming that to troubleshooting. Um, or something. I don't know. I'll see about how the exact way to do that, but I would just like to have one link to send where we can have users like copy the contents of it, right? Paste it into the ideally paste it into their cursor and say, "Hey, use this to change my entire project from version 4 of Nativewind to version 5." And I'm running a few things to try to see how well that could work. I don't expect it to work 100%, but hopefully it
Yep.
does at least 80% of the work for you. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, um, my last thing is I tried to look into the verify installation function, basically our equivalent
Yeah.
of like a doctor command. I literally can't find it. I don't even
Yeah,
know
we
where it
don't have
is.
that yet for V5 yet, the
Okay.
verify installation. Um, I need to because we changed a lot about how the installation works.
Mm-hmm.
And you're gonna have to think about how a better way that we can verify it. Um,
And
I
that's
want to
totally
move
fine.
a
I think
lot
it's
of
just the expectation is people seem to still be running it.
Okay. Yeah.
That's more of what I'm trying to figure out.
Okay.
So, um,
Yes. I would like to move that more into like the metro rather than be like a runtime check or something. I'll have to think about and re-add that command in again
yeah,
if
and
we're
I'll have to
using
try
it a
to
lot.
temporarily remove any reference to it in the meantime.
Yeah.
Um, I just need to find all the places where people seem to be like thinking that that's the next step in troubleshooting. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's pretty much it. We do want to have something like that, um, but we need to kind of cook on what is the best way to do that. Um, yeah, and then I think we're gonna have React Native CSS have its own like documentation page. So
Hmm.
if and when you're ready, I think Mark, we should kind of just like cook on that together, or if you want, we can handle it like we did the Nativewind v5 docs, where we stand something up and you can just populate it with an initial pass kind of thing.
Yeah. I think we will just stand something up because we're going to need docs for it sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll talk about this in a little bit, but we are going to, so like some fixes for React Native CSS are coming. Um, Hopefully, I'll have them out soon now that I'm back. And then after that, these fixes, we're actually going to be adding in the our own like native shadow tree version of React Native CSS. So the native version will be added as well. And we're going to need documentation kind of documenting the differences between this new upcoming experimental native version and the version that people are running nowadays as well. Um, so that's going to be interesting.
That is really so when you're saying a new Shadow Tree version, is that our own implementation of like what Software Mansion has, or is that a layer on top of what they have already put together?
So at the moment, React Native CSS runs entirely in JavaScript, but obviously the problem with that is the performance of it, and we have said before that we were looking into improving the performance. This is the version that is going to be more performant. So we're going to be the whole point of V5 was restructuring the code base so that we could start moving more into the native land. So we're going to have like two versions in the same way that Uniwind has two versions. They've got the JavaScript version and the C++ version. We're going to be offering that as well, and we're going to need the documentation in the same way that Uniwind has that documentation to document the differences between the two versions.
And so the idea there being basically that the JavaScript version alone should just largely suffice for most cases, but if you need like that extra oomph or whatever, you would use the native version.
Well, the idea is, I think, over time, that the JavaScript version should be for Expo Go users, and then as soon as you move into a development client, you should be using the
Oh,
native
yeah.
build. And so the idea is to, from eventually, and once we get to the end of this journey, automatically switch you. So when you start up Metro, if you're starting it for Expo Go, we'll give you the JavaScript version. If you're starting it for a dev client, then we'll give you the native version, where you can actually run it there. But the two versions should be identical in functionality, and that will allow you to use both at the same time, but it gives you the best performance on the final native dev client.
That makes sense. Okay, cool.
But it's a bit of a long journey. um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
but
it's going
we'll
to take
be.
presumably months, right? And
I'm assuming this time next year we'll be at the end of the journey. So this is
yeah,
what I think the next 2026 will be for us, is basically getting up this nice workflow of where React Native CSS does, no matter what you're using in React or React Native, whatever your client is, we can give you the best version and have the styling for it.
yeah. I that is great for like like forward thinking. I do want to take a moment to like acknowledge what we've arrived at,
Yeah.
November
Oh, I know.
2025, because
Yeah.
I think a couple months ago, I had set this goal of like a couple of goals. And one of them was obviously like, let's get version 5 out. Then the other was like making Nativewind like LLM friendly, which I'm still working on, frankly, somewhat due to a lack of understanding. Um, and then the other was get 500,000 downloads per week by end of October 2025. Haven't quite hit that, but we did hit 450,000 downloads per week, which is awesome. Like that's crazy, considering
Yeah.
where we started this year at. And huge thank you goes out to everyone who's been using it and reporting. I think the caliber or quality of the issues and the PRs has gone way up. Like a lot more people are opening
Hmm.
things with repros, and I mean, when you, Mark, take a look at those PRs that like Ty opened up and merged, I assumed AI took part in some of that. You know, once you see like a detailed PR, you're kind of like, oh shit, now kind of thing. Um, but
I think it's
it,
good. I like
yeah,
um the people who use AI as a starting point and then like just make sure that it's not hallucinating too much. I don't mind these PRs. I think they're often like way better than just like here's a link, fix it for me.
yeah, yeah. So I just wanted to take a moment to kind of acknowledge like the significance of what has happened just this year to date, kind of thing. Like
Oh yeah.
it's been amazing. And so I think going into next year, like you said, it's just going to get even better. Um, but yeah,
I still want to get out V5 stable by the end of the year.
that would
I still
be,
want to do,
yeah.
and I want to do it before the Christmas period because obviously at Christmas, like half of December is
No,
a write
yeah,
off.
it's gone. Yeah, I'll be in
Um,
Austria actually, even so it'll be
oh,
difficult for
nice.
me to like starting the 22nd. I'm basically like gone for the rest of the year.
I'll be at the pub.
um, yeah,
But yeah. So the goal is to get it stable and out of the preview before that period. I would love for that to happen so that we can start off 26 with it stable. And then the goal is to eventually have this. That's the end roadmap. Have the native version as well, not just the JavaScript version.
sure.
Um, we also start of next year looking at the Expo integration. So that is hopefully will happen. Not maybe not the new SDK coming up, but just after that, the automatic setup. So for people who are using the Expo SDK, it'll be a feature flag there, and then they can just get up and running nice and quick. And hopefully that will also help with like Nativewind UI of like funneling people down that way of like, hey, Nativewind's right here. You've got all these UI components you can use here as well.
Yeah, I'm also exploring like other tooling to build
Mm-hmm.
out. Um, Still TBD on sort of whether those will remain, which of those projects will be serving the React Native ecosystem versus sort of larger ecosystem as a whole. I've been really pulled towards just sort of building the best dev tooling things in places where I feel have the largest lacking. So I also just think there's so many capable people like building stuff in the React Native ecosystem. Like there's no shortage of people building awesome shit kind of thing. So which I'm very thankful for, and I love meeting up with those people. So so we'll see, but like just expect other stuff beyond, you
I
know, like
think that
R and
is
new.
React Native in general, as the whole ecosystem. I feel like React Native that we knew 5 years ago is very different to React Native we know now.
Hmm.
And I think like the React Native in the next 5 years is going to be quite different to the React Native we know now.
How
If
do
that
you
makes
think
sense.
it'll be like? What are the core ways you think it'll be different?
I mean, look at the web. Um, for a long time, it was just like Webpack, and then like Next.js came along, and now you had that sort of era of either you then create a React app or Next.js, and now you have like Next.js, Remix, TanStack. Like there's all these different bespoke dev toolings,
Approaches.
different
Yeah.
approaches, and different ideals. I feel like in React Native, we're on that catalyst. We're at the moment. you had vanilla or you had Expo. They were like your two choices. Um, and Expo is obviously still going to stay there, but with stuff got like Core Stack Rock starting up, other companies are now starting to enter the space. I'm kind of interested to see where the dev tooling space in React Native is going to go. I think it's going to be quite different in the next couple of years. But that's just a hunch. I've got no facts to back that up. Just the way
I would
people
love
are
to
approaching
see,
it.
as odd as it seems, I'd love to see more frameworks, just more
Yeah.
like expo equivalents, I guess. I am always still surprised by the level of stuff that expo does for free relative to what it's charging for and stuff. um and I'd like to believe that folks have an incentive to create things like that, and that there's no animosity in the event that like those people who try to stand up new frameworks utilize like some of the open source stuff that expo has put into existence. So yeah, I think it probably will be quite different. um but I always wonder, with respect to like these larger companies that seek to use React Native regardless of like the flavor, uh
Mm.
they're gonna generally crave stability, right? And I would say that like in web, while you do have a lot of different options, for the most part, those options are still just PHP or Next.js. And Tanstack is definitely picking up. Everything else doesn't matter. Solid is not a thing. It was a cool like little thing experiment, but it's like it's just not going to happen. There's certain frameworks that just don't happen. They exist. They're like enthusiast tools, but I know very few larger companies, um, or even like accelerating startups kind of thing, that are entertaining those tools. At least we don't see it on the consultancy end of the business, right? So, um, will there be a similar effect in the React Native ecosystem? Different approaches, but ultimately, like, say, two major players kind of serving the bulk of everybody. Um, but yeah, I mean that kind of cross-platform, use JavaScript for everything. The concerns of a lack of speed or performance or anything, I think, are largely quelled by this point. I mean, you have between
Mhm.
folks like Yatsik and Mark Law, or not Mark Rusevi, building fucking fast shit. Like, they're building more performance stuff than people can do in the native ecosystems, or are doing in the native ecosystems. Um, so yeah, I don't think there's really much of an issue with respect to, is this a second caliber tool? Is this like a,
Yeah.
yeah,
To be honest, I expect to see more horizontal shift. So, like, you've already got native development, but like React Native is now moving more into desktop, and that is
yeah.
slowly getting momentum. Embedded systems is slowly gaining momentum. Um, Embedded systems, I mean, both in like hardware devices and embedded into existing systems. So, for example, like game, like video game UIs, like more of them are getting written in React. Um, you know, at what
Oh, like
stage
the
do they start?
Xbox stuff, the Steam
Yeah, like
stuff.
the
Yeah.
Xbox, PlayStation. Um, Once they finally talk about that, a lot of like like Battlefield series was very famous for using React for its UI components. Like, I wonder when they stop switching to using web React and switch over to React Native as well.
Yeah. I'm actually very interested specifically in the desktop stuff because, like I was saying, as I
Yeah.
experiment more with building general purpose tooling, one of the conclusions I'm finding at a high level is that anything significant that's been done in the last 5 years, to my eyes, right, that maybe a bit of subjectivity there, is desktop tooling.
Mm.
Um, if I were to name the five most impressive things, they're not mobile apps. I think a lot of the significant stuff that could have been done with mobile apps has largely been done. And I'm not sure if there's going to be like some sort of like crazy like holy shit usage over the next like 5 years. If we're just talking about, you know, serving mobile app development kind of thing. Um, but the tooling then for desktop, if you are to agree that desktop is like very significant and creates powerful stuff for people to use, then you also quickly run up against the issue that building, like tooling for building desktop applications, is hot dog water. Like it's really not good. Um, and it's not something you come to realize. It's like first day type stuff. And so hopefully React Native can jump in there and make a substantial difference. But it's still pretty early days, and I'm sure Jay has a ton of opinions on this stuff. Um, and isn't the London conference like RN like React Native London happening right now? So I think
Yeah.
he and what's his name have a from Microsoft have a talk on this exact subject. So you can tune into that if you're interested in learning more. But yeah, I'm curious to see what React Native touches over the next 5 years and what that ends up looking like. I'd love to use it for desktop tooling rather than the current options, but it's just a little too soon to tell. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. Um, but yeah, as far as styling is concerned, I think part of this journey that you're describing is uh, the I mean, you mentioned it before, the like Expo Go, Expo SDK stuff. I don't know if you want to go
Mhm.
into that just yet, um, as far as like what the target end of the journey is. But I think that when I get a lot of questions right now about like how can Nativewind and Uniwind simultaneously exist serving the same
Mm.
purpose. And a lot of my answer is just kind of like, well, that's the case a lot of the time. You have plenty of tools that serve the same
Yeah.
purposes. Um, and I think that's really good for both of for everyone involved. Um, but I do think that Uniwind and Nativewind have slightly different goals at the end of the day.
Yes.
Um, Particularly becomes obvious going into next year. So I don't know how much you want to share about that, but
Well, I could talk about that. I think like our goals are pretty public in the fact that we keep saying that native wind, we're now moving past that into React Native CSS. Like our goal is not to support just Tailwind. Our goal is to go larger than that and try and support as much of CSS as possible. While UniWind is focusing on, for the majority, supporting Tailwind. It does allow you to write your own custom CSS in the same way, but that CSS still needs to be within the limitations of what Tailwind's framework is. So Tailwind has certain rules about how it works. Like for example, uh, you have to write your selectors as atomic selectors and things like that. And UniWind works that same way, while we allow for much larger varied selectors and things like that. Um, and we support a couple of different rule sets. There's a lot of overlap there, but the general goal is to not just support Talent, like support any CSS framework or any custom CSS that you're writing. So that's kind of like the goal differences. Like we used to be just about Tailwind, and now we're trying to support kind of everything. And like UniWind will probably go in that same direction. Um, I would love to unite the projects. I've said this before. It would be good if they could be combined together. But if not, well, yeah, there's just two competing projects that have
mhm.
the same goal but just different approaches to it, which I think is fine. That's just
Agreed.
how tech is. Yeah.
Yeah, I, for my part, plan to, sort of help out both efforts.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, like when I talk to Yatsik, when I talk to you, and like, there's just different target goals at the end of the day of where React Native CSS ends up, which is the sort of underlying powerhouse to Nativewind version 5. and I think where Uniwind wants to end up. Uniwind has an interesting thing right now also where they're sort of, offering that paid layer right on top,
Hmm.
for a more bespoke experience, for a more performant or like tailored experience. We don't really offer anything like that. And I've thought about whether it's worth doing. Hands have largely been full so far, but it might be something that we entertain doing going into next year. Um, Definitely probably won't have time for it this year though. So there's just there's a huge amount of people, fortunately, who are coming through saying, how do I show off the project that we use Nativewind in? I want to put it on the website, or um want to support us in other ways and show off how, um and still others who are like, I want to use Nativewind, but these things need to kind of be covered. And it's definitely more than just two people can handle. And I've been trying different approaches to trying to, like, systemize it and like prioritize it. um I might just end up implementing either something like Tailwind had their sponsorship program, which will serve as a way to do that, or otherwise, I think what Uniwind is doing, like I said, is a good way to also provide that priority. um so yeah, going into next year, all to say, I hope my approach to that gets a little bit more on the rails, rather than trying a few different things and seeing how they play out. So yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, like you said, we can find a way to either have them unify and sort of all work towards a common goal. But worst case scenario, there's two, maybe more. I mean, there were competitors when you started this out and along the
Hmm.
way, and that didn't hurt anything. Some people like that stuff, and others stay stuck with Nativewind. Um, so yeah, I'm glad someone else is taking on that task. Yatsik is great. We have a great relationship with him. So um, yeah, that'll regardless, it'll be good moving into the future. Um, but yeah, I definitely want to have more interactive stuff also on the website, for grasping ideas, um, of how to specifically use Nativewind for those, like you said, there's the way Tailwind works, right? And then there's like the places where Nativewind kind of fills out little bits there. Um,
Hmm.
I think a big goal for me going into next year is to just make things a little bit more interactive and easier to understand without outside intervention. Because right now it really does feel like you really need that kind of like a reference document or a person who knows, someone in the community or whatever. Um, so I'm currently playing around with a few different options to uh, to give people that interaction. Um, we'll see how that plays out. Um, yeah. So as far as, Mark, what you're going to be kind of taking on immediately, in getting back, like, do you have like
I just want to get
things top of
some of
mind?
these bug fixes out. So things about mixing styles and props on some of the components. There's still some problems with some of the classes as
Hmm.
well. So big ones are scale and some of the transforms not working. Some of the shorthand ones. So some people are trying to do like background filter with a lot of variables, and it's just not rendering correctly. So I've got some fixes for all of those coming soon as well.
And I'm not sure. I've run into a couple things. I'm not sure if they're. I'll ultimately like send them over to you. I've been taking note
Hmm.
of a couple of them. One thing that's been causing people a bit of strife is the like safe area inset stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, particularly the bottom safe area inset seems to just like not at least work consistently the way the other insets work for the
Okay.
utility class specifically. Um, there should be an issue for it in the issues and or the product roadmap.
Yeah.
Um, so we can kind
Yeah.
of double
Try and
back
check it
and
out.
figure that out. But there's a handful of minor things like that. Most of the stuff, though, I would say is working. It just needs proper documentation. So
Yeah.
that's going to be where I'm going to be spending my time. And the question is just which things come before the other at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's the bulk of the update. We're back. Um,
Yep.
Mark from traveling and being sick.
Yeah,
Myself,
had
I'm
to
largely the
impromptu
same.
leave the country. That's
Yeah,
always fun.
yeah. Um, and we should be doing this still, every week again,
Mm-hmm.
um, barring any kind of force majeure. Uh, you know.
For forced visa
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
issues. Yeah.
I would set the expectation that around US based holidays, this might not go down. So like around your
Oh
Thanksgivings,
yeah.
around your Christmas and
Oh
stuff.
yeah. I got completely thrown off by daylight savings, which don't
Oh,
exist where I live. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it gets really dark at like 5:30 now here,
Yeah.
which is really weird. But yeah, so just set expectations to the end of the year, for that, and yeah, I'll be digging into your GitHub issues, for Nativewind and stuff. Expect responses there. I haven't forgotten about you. Um, all right, Mark, is there anything else you want to mention before we sign off?
No, that's about it.
All right, cool guys. Thanks for joining. We'll catch you in the next one.
All right. Catch you guys.